Did you hear the song? Sorry. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom! We're live. And with me, I got my good friend, the bird.
What's going on, fam?
Damian, Felix.
That's right.
So, let me see. You're from the Boyle Heights community, a current political science major at the University of California, Irvine.
Yes, sir.
And how's it going, man?
Everything is cool, man, you know? Had school today and just trying to pull through with that. And what makes me feel cool is that you're also a political science major, right?
Yeah, man.
How are you liking the whole studying of politics?
Well, the shit is that when you're studying politics, politics isn't just a subject where it's straightforward, you know?
Yeah.
Like biochemistry, that's straightforward, you know?
Yeah.
If you're looking for the fucking a chemical or whatever, it's going to be a certain chemical or
Yeah,
like
but-
let's say for example you're solving an equation for a certain like chemical, right? The answer is going to be a solid answer, and that's
Yeah.
going to be the only answer. Politics is more philosophical, you know? That's why you have two sides. You have the Republican Party and you have the Democratic Party. And
Yeah.
different and both of them have different ideologies, right?
Yeah. So, like, basically anything in the STEM fields, right? That everything has a single answer. Everything could be calculated.
Yeah.
Everybody could agree on one thing. Politics is like, it's basically perception. Like, you could
Yeah.
answer any question. No question has a right or wrong answer as long as you could back it up, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I like about politics. Especially since, like, I was never really good at math, so...
Yeah, man, I
Like-
know. Same shit. You know what? One interesting thing about politics that I like is that, and I noticed it today. After I finished my midterm, I was just walking to my next class and I was thinking, every other subject in some way, shape, or form has something to do with politics, but politics doesn't have everything to do with any other subject.
What do you mean?
Like biochemistry, and let's say for example a chemist is creating some kind of new form of nuclear weaponry, right? That has to be passed by like a Congress.
Shout out Alex Jones.
Shout out Alex Jones. Yeah, like if you're gonna create like a chemical plant, there has to be like legislation that goes through that's gonna allow you to set up that plant, right? And that deals with politics. You know what I mean?
You know
But-
what? That just brings to mind a point that my astronomy professor always makes. He's always like, physics is life, physics is everything. He kind of shits on everything else, on
Yeah.
the other subjects, and he's like, it's all about physics. Physics is what gives us all the answers to life. And I was like, yeah, physics may do that, but it's the Congress and the electorate that decides, like, are we gonna allow this to be put in place or not? Like,
Exactly.
politics is in control, basically, you know? It's
Yeah.
it's so much, it's like politics in everyday life just correlates, you know?
Have you heard of John Stuart Mill?
Yeah.
Dude, this guy, John Stuart Mill, he learned Greek by the age of 3. Like by the 8, he knew how to do algebra. By 14, he was doing complex mathematics at a university with like the greatest minds of the 19th century. Jean-Baptiste.
Was he American?
No, he was British.
Oh, that's
Dude,
right,
he's
that's
he's
right.
fucking crazy. Have you seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
Like the beginning, yeah.
This is basically a real life example of Good Will Hunting, like the super smart people that are just randomly born in a different time period.
Shit.
Look,
Oh, shit.
dude, his fucking backstory is crazy. Look, check it out. At the age of 8, Mill began studying Latin, the works of Euclid, and algebra. 8!
Euclid.
8. At the age of fucking 8, dude. His main reading was still history, but he went through all the commonly taught Latin and Greek authors, and by the age of 10, could read Plato and whatever the fuck with ease. His father also thought it was important, blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling you, dude, this guy was a real guy, man. Like, he was born...
Genius, man.
He was a super genius, man. That's like kind of like
You don't really hear about him either,
fucking
you know?
genetic freak. No, you don't really hear about it. And you know what the thing is? He became a political scientist.
Yeah.
After all these other disciplines that he learned, he thought that his best contribution was to create a book in politics.
Has like one of these geniuses like in politics receive the Nobel Prize? Because I don't think so. Like all the recognized geniuses are like economics, math,
there's
writing,
yeah.
you know. So it's like this man was clearly a fucking genius. What?
Man, was the Nobel Prize even created back then? This is the 19th century.
As of today, though, like any political, like Ben Shapiro, like, would you say that he would be an individual that's eligible to receive a Nobel Prize?
I mean, the only reason I could never see him ever winning a Nobel Prize is because he's very controversial, and a lot of people wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah, that just goes back to what we were talking at the beginning. You know, that all these other fields that where people do receive Nobel Prizes are STEM, so everything has one answer. Everything could be proven with an equation or the right mathematics.
Yeah.
Politics does not have a right answer, so it'd be pretty hard to get people to elect like a candidate for the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
That's like involved in political science.
That brings me, since now we're on the topic of politics and we're both politics majors. Bernie 2020, man, what do you think, dog?
I don't know, man. I just have this weird perception of Bernie Sanders because in high school, you know, we had all these people that were supporting him, but I didn't really understand why. I wasn't that really into politics back then. But even now, I think back and I'm like, what attracted these people to Bernie Sanders, you know?
I think it's the promises. The promises are very simple, but the thing is that because they're so simple, they can't happen without some kind of fuck up, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like free healthcare. That sounds so easy, right? But it's so easy. It almost seems so easy. You don't discount the factor that it's impossible. Like you can't just say let's give people free shit, like free healthcare, free housing, free. Did I say Medicare already? No, free Medicare. Free college for 2 years. Like you can't just promise all these things and not count the factor of economics.
It's like where's all this money coming from to
exactly
fund all of these? It's like they say taxpayer money, you know, but there's fucking potholes in the street. Like that money's not being used towards shit that's needed, you know. But they are gonna use it to fucking fund everybody's college tuition and healthcare, and that's just, it sounds crazy to me.
Healthcare and 2 free years of college would cost the United States economy an estimated $1 trillion in infrastructure. $1 trillion.
What's the debt right now?
Dude, no. Forget the debt. The nation's annual budget's $11 trillion.
Look up the GDP of the U.S. Let's see what the fuck they be spending money on.
GDP?
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll probably.
So you said it's gonna be how many trillions?
1 trillion.
Just on education and healthcare, basically.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
But the thing is that this would cause tax rates to dramatically increase. Like they're saying that they want to tax the 1% above 90% of their total income.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know that the 1% entails making over $100,000 a year. Like $100,000 is basically the starting point to enter the 1%. Like, imagine them being taxed as 90%. All the hard work that led to them probably earning that income for those that did earn it. Like, what's the math on that? Like 90% times 100,000. What would that be?
90% times 100,000?
Yeah, 0.90 times 100,000.
You know what? That's why we have technology, man. What was the math?
100,000 times 0.90. 0.9.
90,000?
That's just crazy, man. Like, is that just something that the news doesn't put on, or?
I really don't understand how they allow someone like this to run. Like, how is this going to be feasible?
he has the support, man. That's all you need, basically.
I've seen a lot of people gain support even though they're dumb as fuck. You know.
It's because his ideas are easy to comprehend, like you said. They sound so simple that even applied to the comprehension of them, they're easy, you know. So people are like, yeah, especially people from the Boyle Heights or other low-income areas. They're like, oh yeah, this is cool. They're gonna give us free healthcare. They're gonna give us they're gonna help us with tuition, which is already like something that a lot of people struggle with. Those who don't receive grants or any sort of help, like it just sounds appealing to most people in the United States. But for those who do know about politics and the way the elections and everything affects the future, this doesn't sound that appealing, especially like you said in an economic perspective.
Yeah. So, and the thing is that socialism, I mean, it's not something that hasn't been tried before, you know?
That's basically what it is.
So that he's a democratic socialist. Basically that means socialism. It's the same thing. It's just rephrased. But
you should explain.
Did you ever take history in the 20th century?
No.
No? So I took a 20th century history class. I think for anyone out there listening that enjoys history or that even gives a fuck about school or politics, if someone that's speaking on politics doesn't know their 20th century history, I think it's very there's a lack of context when people do that, you know? Because the 20th century is basically the history that came right before we are right now, where we are right now. You know? It's everything that led to where we are right now. And the 20th century was shaped by war. It was characterized by war. It was characterized by failing economies across the world, failing sovereign nations. The most popular of which is the USSR, the Socialist Soviet Republic.
Yeah.
So they were the first to become a socialist country after the German Karl Marx created his manifesto, right?
The Communist Manifesto.
Yeah. So Lenin was the first to implement this in Russia in the 20th century. And very quickly it led to the deaths of millions of their own people by starvation and by sending them to gulags where they were worked to death, right? Because the government was in control of the revenue and how it was distributed to the people. You know, the people didn't really have a say in how their resources were distributed.
Yeah.
Whereas in today's democratic republic that we have here in the United States, people more or less have a say where their money's going to go, right? But with a socialist country, the government starts taking hold of the revenue and redistributing it to people in its population, right?
Yeah.
Without them even earning the money, right? But this economic system failed dramatically, very rapidly in Russia. And so many people were sent to gulags and they were worked to death because they were it was primarily the farmers that were rich. And so these rich farmers a lot of people were envious of these rich farmers. And they said, well, you can't be rich in a society where everyone else is poor. And they were sent to gulags to be worked to death, basically. In fact, more people were killed in these gulags and in socialist Russia than Jews were killed by Hitler. Did you know that? I could look that up right now.
The same thing was going on in China also.
Where did I find that? That's the Soviets in... I did the research for a paper I wrote on this.
Right here.
This one?
Excess mortality in the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin.
This one right here?
Right here.
Oh.
The blue one right here.
9 million. 9 million. Remember that number? And I'll watch this. Let me see.
Yeah, what's crazy is that there were so many other genocides other than the Jewish one, and they're not really publicized as much, you know?
Yeah. I should have just came prepared with these kind of But the thing is, I didn't know I was gonna go into this. Let me see.
What was the? I can't remember his name.
6 million.
What the fuck was his name?
The thing is that Russia, like, they killed their own people, you know?
Yes, the Soviet Russia. Yeah, the same thing occurred in China with Mao Zedong.
Mao is China, yeah.
Yeah, was the Chinese communist revolutionary who became the founding father of the People's Republic of China, which he ruled as the chairman of the Communist Party of China from its establishment until his death.
Oh man, before you go on, man, let me just tell you something. I think you've been moving that camera. Yeah, I should lock that down somehow. Just like don't touch the table because I can move that. What was I gonna say? So it's crazy how these kinds of things aren't really taken into account when discussing socialism in the 21st century, you know? Like the fact that socialism has never worked at all. It's never worked in China, it's never worked in Russia, and it didn't work in Cuba, and it's currently not working in Venezuela.
Socialism or communism?
Socialism, communism, same shit.
Well,
socialism is basic. Well, they say that there was never full-fledged communism. So
yeah, the way that they enacted the whole communist form of government was like not right, you know, that the true Marxist communism has never been executed.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I mean, if like a lot of scholars that focus on communism will tell you that, oh, the communism that existed in Russia and in China and anywhere else that has that claims that they're a communist country is not truly a communist country by definition. But like the argument that people would make against you is that places like Sweden, you know, who have a sort of socialist,
but they're small countries, man. They're small countries. They don't compare.
And then that's the argument you refute with, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people think that you could apply that sort of socialism to America. What do you think about that?
Like I said, those countries are way smaller than the United States. This is like the number one leading national economy.
Yeah.
The United States is the number one economy in the whole world.
I don't know, man. China's
going up.
Man.
China's going up.
You heard what Joe Rogan said about China and how Google kind of fucked with their whole regulations and let the Chinese government implement their sort of like restricted views on Google. So like, in order for Google to exist in China, they have to follow a set of rules, right? And people were saying that Google sold out because of that, you know? Like, Google is entering this communist nation and oh shit, I forgot about not touching it.
Yeah. Hey Roger, can you do me a favor, man? Can you just close that door? Just close it. Or you, Bird, if you could reach. Alright. Fucking noise, you know? Yeah, the thing is, we're parked right next to a street, so yeah. I mean, we're situated right next to a street. So. Oh yeah, so man, I'll just this is why I start later, you know?
Yeah.
I'll edit that shit out right now. Or later. If I do at all. Oh man. Or I'll just cut this fucking clip. Fuck this.
Fuck it, man.
I just cut this side of the fucking clip. Fuck it. Alright, so the new left preaches a lot of this, which I call white antagonism. Have you heard about the anti-gentrification protests?
No.
No, you haven't heard about the anti-gentrification protests here in Boyle Heights?
Here? No.
Yeah, man, there's protests out here.
Yeah, I'm really not here, so.
Yeah, me neither, but I have to keep up with this shit. I'm gonna cut the clip out, so we're gonna have to start from fucking.
No.
All right, so yeah, the protests here in Boyle Heights are crazy, man. They're fucking crazy.
Actual protest?
Yeah, there's actually this cafe shop. It's called Weird Wave Cafe Shop, and basically that place has been vandalized 9 times already.
Where is it?
It's in Cedar Chavez.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah,
It's by King Taco.
They were protesting there for like a whole like a month. Every time I would go get my haircut, they were protesting.
Oh, so you've seen
Yeah,
this, Boyle?
I seen this.
Boyle is a native to the BH area. How long you been living here, Boyle?
All my life.
25 years.
This and that, they were pretty much what the Jaber was talking about.
Roger, you're gonna sound like background noise, man.
I know. I'm just gonna say quick. Pretty much they were protesting, protesting right there, and I don't know about they didn't
Boyle
want it
2020.
there. They didn't want
Boyle
it.
2020, running for president.
They didn't want it there and shit. So they're like, they were protesting. They were like a cool month too. They were chill though. Like I knew them too. They were pretty chill.
What's fueling the protest though?
So it's because it's driving rent prices up, because basically the way you get a rent price is there's 2 factors that lead to your rent prices. One of them is the wages of the people in the community. That's one factor that's taken into account when determining rent price.
So minimum wage.
Like let's say for example you live in a low income community, the average wage of the person here will be taken into account, and that is one contributing factor to how much the rent is in these like homes. And the second one is supply and demand, which is the one that's our main focus here, because these people are moving in and there's very few supply of areas to lease and a lot of demand. So people with bigger bucks are going to be the ones benefiting from this, right? Because when you have, and I'm sure you've learned this in economics class, when you have high demand and low supply, you drive prices up, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's why prices go up throughout Boyle Heights when these, white people move in, right? Because they're coming in with money to invest in their own businesses and to thrive here in Boyle Heights. And a lot of people are upset by that.
So are you saying that the only reason they're moving to Boyle Heights is because of the high demand? Like they can't find places, or they want to be here in Boyle Heights?
I think it's Los Angeles, man. It's the city to go to if you want to create a business, you know?
Really?
I mean, there's a lot of people here, you know?
Why is this problem occurring here though? You think because of the dense?
It's actually happened in New York. That's why prices are dramatically high in New York. To live in New York, it's very expensive.
But the things that the thing that's fueling the protests, is that the same in New York as well?
That happened way before.
What?
Gentrification has already taken over in New York.
But New York never had like a set community, right? Or did it?
It's
like
just
areas you're saying, like
I don't know. Well,
like
Manhattan is the prime example I'm using. I'm not using Queens or anything like that. I'm using Manhattan. So to get an apartment in Manhattan, it's gonna cost a bit of money, you know.
That's just real estate, though.
Exactly. So that the real estate market value of the homes here is going way up. Every home here in the real estate market is going up in value.
Why? Because of demand?
Yeah.
Why demand though? What's fueling the demand?
Well, I actually don't know what's fueling demand, but there is like people moving in here, investing money into homes and into local businesses, and flipping them.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, so that's why prices are going up here, and well, not prices, but rent prices and like let's say for example you're a homeowner here and so you're renting out to someone else, right? Yeah. These people, these homeowners they get convinced to sell their home for a high price, you know, and the people that are suffering are the people that are renting from them.
Yeah.
So that's why they get left without homes, right? The prime example is the one that people fought against was the one in the orange apartments right here on 8th Street. Those were all gonna get sold.
Really?
Yeah, and people were gonna get driven out.
The Wyvernwood or?
Yeah, the Wyvernwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sold to who though?
I don't know, but that's one of the main areas where there was a lot of controversy.
Fuck, I didn't even know about that.
But the shit is change inevitable, right? There's this thing that I came up with for this podcast. It's a phrase. It's called the redlining slash gentrification paradox, because historically speaking, people claim that historically the low income neighborhoods that they live in was shaped by redlining.
Yeah.
You've heard about redlining?
Yeah.
The
Gerrymandering and shit like that.
Yeah, so basically, people were not provided loans or provided money to invest in their community, and so they were basically stuck in these communities, right? And they didn't have any choice or option to move out. And this is an actual thing. So people were put on blacklists, and certain names of people in communities were put on blacklists, and they were denied financial services from insurance companies and from banks. So now that's why they a lot of like ghetto areas in certain communities across the nation, the reason they're homogenous, meaning that there's typically only one racial group in the area, is because of this redlining process in the past. But that's already been abolished.
Yeah, but that shit's all fucked up though. Like, the reason, like you said, that low income people settled in areas like this was because they weren't giving loans. They were not giving loans and shit like that to move into better neighborhoods, you know?
Yeah.
So the outer neighborhoods, the suburbs, were reserved for like people with money.
Yeah.
And now that down the line that we've settled here pretty much, now they want to move in here too. So they're trying to like kick us out from here again by raising up rents and raising up basically the cost of living here, which is kind of like fucked up, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't anybody's fault. It's just an economic process that occurs. There's no government behind this. There's just people investing money here, and that's how it's a natural process that occurs in the capitalist system. It's not like there's some kind of oppressive force upon us that's moving us out. It's just the economy and like I said, the real estate market value of the homes and the local businesses.
Yeah, I feel like taxes affect that too. Like, the price of opening a shop here is much less than opening a shop in Beverly Hills, you know, in that area. So taxes are probably lower here because of the basic low income that exists here, you know, like you said, that influences basically the price of everything.
And people, the people are blaming white people specifically. Like I said, that this is the real estate market value that's causing these changes.
Why white people directly?
I don't know. I don't understand why people use that. Like, they use that as to blame for this process when it's not just white people. It's black people. It's Asian people.
That's always been the thing to do, though, you know? Oh, fuck the white people. You know, it's their fault that we're living like this. It's their fault that we don't have opportunity. Like, it's always been the scapegoat, basically. Oh, the white people are putting us down, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. They don't consider all the rich-ass Asians, you know?
Oh, dude, the Asians are doing better than white people. Their annual income is higher than... the average annual income of an Asian person is actually higher than a white person.
Yeah, I was telling the boyo how a lot of the Asians you'll meet at like your college or basically anywhere you go, when you ask them where you're from, they'll say Vancouver. Do you know why that is?
Why?
Because Vancouver has basically an open visa for everyone who makes over $1 million a year. If you make over $1 million a year, well, income, Vancouver will basically open its doors for you. That like you could come here, become a Canadian citizenship, and like contribute to our economy. From Vancouver, it's much easier to get a visa or a green card to come to the United States, you know? So it basically just, it's a big-ass system of, like, it's just crazy how much money could influence the type of life you live in and the opportunities you get, you know? Like, these rich Asians are able to come here because we're basically opening the doors for them. Like, we need the money and shit. It's just crazy. They're also buying a lot of property.
But they're also making it harder for them to get into college.
What do you mean?
Like, for example, you know about I forgot that policy that was put into place. Basically, it makes minority groups that are not doing so well in academics get into more difficult colleges. So they add points to their SAT scores, but for the Asians, they actually make it harder. So they take away points from their SAT.
What is that?
Because there's a lot of Asians that are that can easily outcompete every other group in the United States, including white people.
What's the term, man? It's
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action. Yeah, that guarantees basically that a certain percent of minority students will be allowed into the university, and that they won't really consider your trade. I mean, not your trades, but your skills, your SAT scores, your overall GPA. Like, some schools would just take you in because they need to have this percent of Mexican Americans or blacks or other minorities in their school to look reputable, you know?
Exactly. And it wasn't always this way either, so.
Yeah, the left really pushed for affirmative action.
Yeah.
But then that kind of makes it harder for those Asians who are Asian Americans and basically live like in an apartment, a small area, a low income area, you know? They're basically gonna be affected by this marginalization of like, oh, put this kind of like pushback on the Asians so we can allow different groups.
What do you think about white privilege?
Like, do I think it exists or?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Me neither. Let me tell you my reason. And a lot of people are going to get offended out there for me saying this. Believe me, man. There's a lot of people that are going to get offended by this. But I think if you look at it the way I'm looking at it, it's more beneficial to you. Because you don't feel like there's someone that is stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve systematically. And if there is one form of institutional racism, it's affirmative action. Because it's literally allowing people into colleges determined by their race, right? Other than that, I really don't see it. Like, people use the police brutality rates to say that's one form of institutional racism. That cops shoot a lot of black people, and this is basically one form, and a lot of Hispanic people. But if you look at the statistics, it actually shows that cops shoot way more whites than any other group in the country. Did you know that?
Yeah, white people are crazy,
man. So, I mean, and I've met a lot of white people that are actually not doing so well financially as well, you know?
Yeah.
I've met a lot of those people. I work in a warehouse where there's a couple white people in there that are not these super rich one percenters, you know?
That shit kind of shocks you, huh?
It shocks you because you hear this whole...
You grow up thinking like, white people, you know?
Well, in this community especially.
Yeah.
It's over 90% Hispanic.
Yeah.
You hear all the jargon being thrown around about how white people are evil in politics, or they're putting a hand on top of us that's not letting us achieve, right?
Especially
or succeed.
Right now with Donald Trump.
Exactly. You know? And when you say, oh, it's the white people that are doing this, it's the white people, are you also including those people that work at warehouses that are making just bare minimum wage? Like, where is their privilege?
It's like, what's the saying? Causation does not equal, or is it the other way around?
No. It's the other way around. It's
correlation is not causation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when people think about a white politician, Donald Trump comes to mind.
No. Causation does not mean no.
It's basically the same shit.
Yeah.
So people think of a white political leader, Donald Trump. They associate racist, you know, rapist, like crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the perception that they carry with them in their day-to-day lives.
What happened?
I thought it was someone trying to open the door.
Hey man, if we die on this podcast, when the cops find these videos, they're gonna be like, they were doing some kind of fucking podcast.
That's fucked up.
That's fucked. They were talking about politics. No, but and a lot of people shit on Trump for saying he's racist himself, when he basically states sometime, you know, I've heard a lot of what he says through Hispanic mouths, talking bad about Hispanics, that we only do drugs and then we don't want to succeed. And the leftist argument against that is that it's because of our socioeconomic backgrounds that we can't succeed. So the more money you funnel into lower income communities or into groups that are not doing so well in the country, the more they're going to be able to succeed, right?
Yeah.
But is it entirely socioeconomic? Or is it also partly cultural?
I think it's both, man, because I just finished writing a report where I was talking about human, social, and economic capital.
Right.
Economic capital, your wealth, your income. Social capital, the density of your relationships. So basically your connections, the groups you associate with, which in all fuel who you are and the perceptions you have, you know? And finally, educational capital, well, human capital. human capital is education, the skills you possess, and everything you do for yourself.
Yeah.
So human capital, education, social capital, your relationships, and economic capital, your wealth. People that grow up here don't have the same like political connections or connections overall that more wealthy people do, you know?
That's actually conservative. To be conservative in that an aspect where you're concerned about the security of your wealth and security of your well-being.
Yeah.
That's a conservative value.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that that the socioeconomic background does affect to an extent your future.
Right.
Like you can't negate the fact that hard work is not gonna get
But what
you.
about the Asians?
What do you mean?
How are they doing so well in this country if they were at one point minority groups that were just poor immigrants just like Hispanics? And how come they did so well, historically speaking?
The majority of Asians that are prospering here are from China. They come from a communist country where the wealth is shared, where everything is shared.
What about Asian Americans? They're not
Asian
doing.
Americans?
But the thing is that they're not doing as bad as Hispanics or blacks.
Who?
Asian Americans.
It's just it comes down to culture, I guess. Like
Yeah, it's also partly cultural, man.
yeah.
That's why you.
It's both. It's both. You could argue both. Like we said, there's never a right answer. Like you could always argue. It just depends on the day, you know.
Yeah.
You'll feel a certain way. You'll feel like arguing more towards this or more towards this. It all just depends on your perspective, you know.
I think it also has to do with values that our cultures give to us. Growing up Hispanic, you value basically working hard as well as you value an education. So let's say, for example, a parent, let's say a parent has a child, and that child grows up to abandon going to college, but is working pretty hard. The parent of that child in the Hispanic community does not value an education more so than it does working hard. It's almost at the same level. If you're working hard, a parent's gonna be proud of you. A Hispanic parent's gonna be proud of you just as if you're going to college.
So as long as you work hard,
a parent's gonna be proud of you.
A Hispanic parent will be proud of you.
Yeah. Whereas my experience with Asian Americans is that, and there's a lot of memes about this on social media, that their parents really care about their education. And have you seen the memes going around about like the Asian American parents? I mean, or the Asian parents of Asian Americans?
No, I haven't.
That like they focus on their, yeah, you've seen it? Like they focus on their like education and how they really care that they score well on tests and so forth. So maybe it's also values.
Yeah, I feel that all of these core values are universal though. They exist within all ethnicities, all races. Like no matter what, every parent tells their kids to work hard, no matter if they're Hispanic or black or white. Everyone tries to enforce and instill that in their children, that good work ethic. And basically in America, like education is prioritized by everybody, you know? Unless you truly see that your kid is like really pushing away, you kind of just accept it, you know? Like, oh, as long as they're doing something. But yeah, I feel like the core values are all universal. Like the values that a black person has are basically the same as the values of a white person or a Mexican American or Hispanic or whatever you want to call it. That values will basically.
And how come there's so
everybody
much?
has the same
Then how
values.
come there's so much deviation in culture?
Core values? What do you
Core
mean?
values, like
Core values, like hard work, stuff like that.
well, some cultures they care more about religion than anything else.
But they devote themselves to the religion, which is kind of a form of hard work. Like they're the discipline basically. Hard work I associate with discipline, so I feel that core value is discipline. Everybody tries to instill the discipline in their kid, and that discipline carries on into everything they do in their lives, whether education, work, religion. It's discipline that determines who you become, and it's discipline that will open a lot of doors for you in the future.
Okay, so did we finish talking about the Weird Wave coffee shop? How it was vandalized 9 times?
I don't get how it gets vandalized 9 times though. Like, what is this coffee shop doing?
They blame the people that are protesting gentrification for doing this. Do you think that's justified?
9 times though, like if they had a a banner saying, you know, F the Mexicans, I could understand how it'd get vandalized, but...
This is his quote. I didn't come to Boyle Heights to change Boyle Heights. I came to sell people coffee.
That's the owner?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Right? I mean, I don't think it's justified for people to be vandalizing his private property.
But going back on what we were talking about values is that, I don't know why, but I've noticed through various experiences that Mexicans kind of hate on other Mexicans, you know? Like if they see a Mexican doing well or doing better than them, it kind of starts, this little hate starts to build, you know? Like this sense of envy. I don't understand why that happens. Like
you think that's cultural or individualistic?
Well, I've been exposed to mostly Mexican throughout my life, so I haven't
have been like that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's...
I haven't really picked it up from other communities. Like I haven't been around them that much. But yeah, that's something I've noticed. Like the owner even said, I'm here to just sell coffee, but the reason why the Mexicans, I feel, or the Boyle Heights community doesn't accept him is because we've just grown accustomed to being around each other, you know?
Yeah.
So when another person tries to come in, we feel like, oh, they're invading our shit. They're trying to take what's ours, you know? So that defensiveness, I feel, is fueled by this.
That's why I came up with this phrase, the redlining / gentrification paradox, because on the one hand, you have redlining, which separates certain minority groups into homogenous communities, and so the reason that redlining was created, the concept was created, was because people didn't like that. They didn't like to be homogenized into low-income communities. And now with this gentrification paradox, with the gentrification process, it's actually doing the opposite. It's moving homogenous communities out. So it's diversifying Los Angeles. Basically, it's diversifying Boyle Heights. And so it's getting rid of homogeny.
Is this going on in other areas of LA that are...
I actually don't know, man. But
like Chinatown or...
I have no idea.
Like South Central, you know?
Yeah. I've only been paying attention to Boyle Heights, and because there's a lot of protests, and the protests are so controversial that they've even got to the Joe Rogan podcast. You know, he's even talked about it, but he doesn't talk about South Central.
Yeah, like going back to what you said about Manhattan and the prices of businesses and rent and everything, like Manhattan is expensive. Why? Because it's Manhattan. It's like a center of economy. It attracts people from around the world. I feel that LA is growing, and that
it is.
Boyle Heights is right next door to downtown, you know? So this is the perfect place to live in LA, I feel. Like we go over the bridge, or you take the 101 and you're in downtown, you know? Like it's just, the price of this real estate is going up because of that. That LA is becoming this global city that everyone wants to come visit, or everyone wants to set a business up here. Like that's just crazy how I never thought that Boyle Heights would be like this sought out place, you know? I just thought about it as my home.
Yeah.
And now it's attracting people from all over the world. I see Asian people driving. I see...
Is that so wrong though?
What?
That these different cultures are coming into Boyle Heights.
Like we've talked about it, you know, it's a part of life. Like you can't expect shit to remain the same forever.
Yeah.
Shit changes. It's just
I'm not angry at all, because I mean, this is the real world. In the real world, you don't just live with your own group forever. You know, the world's filled with different cultures, with different races, with different people, with different ideas, and you know, different ways of thinking or looking at the world. Yeah. That's just how the world is.
It's hard, though.
And you can't just have one community in the United States where it's just entirely Hispanic. That's not how the real world is, man. There's all different kinds of cultures out there. And if they want to move in, there's no law that's prohibiting them, man. And there shouldn't be. Because you should have the freedom to move around in this country if you're a citizen, right?
Exactly.
So it's like when people get mad, when they say, white people get the fuck out. White people they're literally chanting this out, you know, get the fuck out, like white people, you know? And like, aren't those lines themselves racist? Because you're targeting a certain group based on their skin color?
Yeah, that goes back to what you were saying about white privilege, you know?
Right.
That anytime a white person does something to a minority race, it blows up. But when minority groups are like throwing shade at white people, it's okay. Like, it's kind of contradicting themselves, you know?
Yeah.
That's a point that Steven Crowder made in one of his videos. You know, where he goes to the college and he's like, "Oh, change my mind."
Yeah.
He was speaking to this African American girl, and well, she claimed that she was African American. That's how she presented herself. She's like, "I'm African American," so I'm referring to her as African American. So he's interviewing this girl, and he's like, "Changed my mind. Like, what, that white privilege does not exist." He's claiming white privilege does not exist.
Yeah.
And then they're going back and forth, and then Crowder makes the point that I had to pay to be here. You were given a grant and you're here for free. Like, isn't that racist to an extent? Like, just because I'm white and I make this income,
Yeah.
not even like,
Yeah, because they give grants based on skin color now. Like, if you're of a certain minority group, you can get a grant just because you're part of a minority group, whereas white people can't. White people can't get a some kind of scholarship or grant based on their skin color because they're considered a majority population that's doing well. So
on their ethnicity, you know, like
yeah,
if you're Latino, you could go online and find a Latino scholarship, you know, enter that shit, win it, and it'll get applied to your tuition. But yeah, that it's tougher for those like middle class white people to really get grants and benefit from the government the way we do, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of racist, I guess.
Dude, we're gonna get shit on for this podcast because a lot of people don't like hearing this shit. But I think
hearing what though? Like I don't feel that anything that we've said is like
overtly offensive
or away from the fact, you know? Like if people don't want to accept this shit, that the world's changing and that's just the way the world is, the way life is, and that's their problem, you know?
Yeah.
Shit just moves forward. It evolutionizes. Shout out Sandian.
Shout out Sandy. What was I gonna say? Shit, I forgot.
What's this little thing you have right here?
What?
A lot of people claim that redlining has historically shaped neighborhoods and homogeneous communities. Now that communities are diversifying, the people. Yeah, so I feel it's a shock. It's a culture shock that.
Should I read that out to the people?
Yeah, read it out. It's basically.
All right. So I wrote this earlier, part of the notes for the podcast. A lot of people claim that redlining has historically shaped neighborhoods into homogeneous communities. Now that communities are diversifying, the people within the community themselves are fighting against diversity and are trying to maintain Boyle Heights as a homogeneous community, which is Hispanic only.
Yeah, that's just negating a fact, you know? The fact that shit's changing around here and you don't want it to change, but...
And the thing is that they're not going to be homeless. People are afraid of homelessness, but they're not going to be homeless. The thing is that...
That's something we don't want. That's something like the government doesn't want, you know?
Exactly.
They don't want homelessness. They're trying to fix that problem.
Yeah. People that are getting pushed out are not going to get pushed out to the streets necessarily. They're just going to have to move farther away from this metropolitan area into the greater Los Angeles area, like I said before in a previous podcast, like Victorville, Apple Valley, Ontario. Not necessarily part of the center of Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
They're going to get moved out to communities where the rent's actually lower. Yeah. But the people don't want to give up a community that they have an emotional attachment to. So people that have grown up here don't want to move out, or people that have shared memories here don't want to get pushed out. They want to live in Boyle Heights and die in Boyle Heights.
This is such a controversial topic, though, man. Like, because there's people out there who are literally losing their homes who rent, you know?
Yeah.
They've been renting the same house for years and years, and all of a sudden the owner decides to sell it. Now they don't have a home. Like,
to rent.
Yeah.
But they could rent somewhere else with a lower price. But the problem is if they have a job that's in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
That's the main argument I would say against my explanation for this is that because I say pretty much that if you could rent here in Los Angeles, you could rent somewhere else for a much cheaper price, and you could probably even be a homeowner. I think to own a home in Apple Valley would be like $1,300 a month. The mortgage would be $1,300, as low as $1,300 a month. That's lower than some rent here in Los Angeles. But the thing is that if you want to move out, you have to have had a job where you move around, where you can go work in different areas of different cities. Like you can't have a set location. Like if you own a business here in Boyle Heights, you're gonna have to commute out to your business if you want to maintain that business.
Yeah, what's fucked up about all this, I feel, is that moving to a new home kind of entails adopting a new life, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, jobs, friends, family, like just getting kicked out of nowhere just because your homeowner decided to sell the house, and now
Right.
you have to go like start over, basically find a new home, find a new job, create new social networks with your neighbors and shit. Like for instance, Roger, you rent, right? Yeah. So Roger's property owner recently died, but luckily the new homeowners didn't
Sell the home.
feel the need to sell the home or kick Roger out. You know, like Roger got lucky. His home, the homeowner died.
They could have been dates.
The home was it transferred hands, but luckily they decided to do what's morally right. You know, ethically right to leave.
But
the
what if
people
your
there.
home is worth or estimated at a value of, let's say, $1 million? Because that's what some properties here in Los Angeles cost. So you'd have a strong incentive to want to sell your home, because from one moment to the next you could be a millionaire.
Yeah.
So
it comes down to ethics.
yeah,
you know?
because people like to attach moral. They like to put a moral attachment on this economic process, but I mean I'm pretty sure anyone would want to sell their home for $1 million if it's their home. I mean, if you're a private owner, I mean, and it's your home, I mean, you could do so as you wish. You know, you were renting out the home to provide income for yourself, and now you found an alternative, which is to sell the home for $1 million.
Yeah, well, the people who are renting don't really benefit from that, though. You know,
No,
they're the
don't.
ones that are not gonna be millionaires after the deal is done. They're the ones that are gonna have to start their lives fresh with basically nothing and figure shit out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the fucked up side to this shit, you know.
So what would be the solution
To what?
to this whole process, if any at all? Do you let this go on, or do you stop it? Do you create a policy that creates homogenous communities? Isn't that in itself sort of racist?
You can't do that. Like you can't stop shit from changing
Exactly.
in nature. I feel that.
So what's the need for protests?
I feel that there are hopes to change people's perspectives. For instance, if a homeowner is set on selling his home and he doesn't really interact with the people he rents to, but then a protest is a way that these people are able to communicate to him how they feel and what the home means to them. I feel that that'll change the homeowner's perspective.
But the thing is, they're not protesting against a homeowner. They're protesting against the other people that are moving in. So they're saying, like, white people get the fuck out, you know? They're not saying homeowners don't sell our homes. So there's an important distinction.
But that doesn't make sense, though. Like, of course, if they sell a home, it's evident, especially now that a white person or someone who's not Mexican is gonna move in. You know.
Right.
So how are you gonna hate on the player when you're not hating on the game? You know, the homeowner's the one basically doing this shit, not the people moving in. All they're doing is buying a home. You know.
Right.
But yeah, like
So
it's just.
So that's what I was saying. They're just buying a home. So why are you protesting against the white people, and why are you not protesting against the homeowners?
Because the homeowners get the money.
They're
They did.
ultimately the ones that make the decisions, though.
They did, man.
That's why. So
They probably feel that by protesting they're gonna discourage white people from wanting to be here. Maybe that white people will feel like threatened to be here.
right.
That's the only explanation I could come up with to protesting against white people. You know, other than that, I don't see what it could do, especially in speaking in terms of policy to change this. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it all comes down to just adapting and recognizing that all over the world people live with people from different cultures, you know.
Yeah, that's a hard fact that I think people have to realize, man, because the world isn't a world filled with homogeny where we all live in different tribes, where Hispanics live in one area and then blacks live in this area, and then it's not the way we live in the 21st century anymore. You know, the world is
Exactly. It's
interconnected.
it's like a neglection to globalization. Like no matter where you go, you're not only gonna see those people. If you go to India, you're not only gonna see Indians there.
Yeah.
If you go to Mexico, you're not only gonna see Mexicans.
Europe is
like
a perfect example of that.
Europe, very
Europe.
diverse. Africa, very diverse. United States, very diverse. No matter where you go, you're gonna find diverse groups, and you just gotta. Well, I feel like that this shit's only difficult for us though. Like we're so used to living amongst Mexicans that being exposed to someone else is like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah, but I think it's more of fear of the unknown than anything else, because we start seeing these changes in the community and we start asking ourselves, how is this going to affect our daily lives in the future, you know?
Yeah.
And the gentrification process is gonna take about 15 to 20 years. So I mean, people have time to plan ahead and so forth.
When you first started dorming in Riverside, were you affected by the differences
It was
in culture?
and I've mentioned it before in a different podcast. I think it's the very first one, but I didn't really go into it. When I first moved out to Riverside, when I was dorming over there, I was living in a dormitory with almost, I guess, if I had to give you a percent, it'd be like 93%, 95% Asian. There was my roommate who was Greek, and I think there was one more other Mexican, but I never really saw him. There was a couple white people, but for the most part, it was Asian. And I mean, when I moved out there to dorm, it was definitely a huge culture shock. Because I went to a high school where there was literally one black person and everyone else was Hispanic.
She wasn't even in her grade. Huh?
Exactly. I mean, no, but for real, like if you think about it, like our high school was filled with it was all Hispanic. There was no other group there.
That's true.
And if you ask anybody else in college, you know, their high schools were
diverse.
Diverse.
Yeah, that's one thing that shocked me, the way that all these people were so comfortable with one another, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt that I was kind of the outsider, like, what the fuck? I'm not used to this, you know?
Yeah.
But everyone was just so chill with each other. Like, even the Indian kids with the Asians and the white kids, and everybody was just so chill with each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, like, I've never done this, you know?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
We've only ever hanged out with Hispanics.
With Hispanics. I
So,
was like,
yeah.
I didn't know what to talk to them about and shit. I'm like,
I'm slowly getting over that now.
Yeah, it takes
It takes time and pretty much just being exposed to other cultures, and before you know it, you're just, a regular person among every other regular person.
Yeah, I feel that's gonna happen here over time. You know, people would just accept the fact that that's how it is, you know, and they'll get used to it, and life will go on.
I think ultimately the goal is to get rid of this lens we have on us where we only see race. You know, I feel like we should just look at people as individuals and not necessarily bringing the color of their skin into any kind of evaluation or anything like that going forward in life. You know, you shouldn't be looking at people because of their race.
Exactly.
You should be looking at people for who they are.
Exactly.
Right?
I agree with that. 1000%.
Like, everyone deserves a shot, even white people. White people are chill. Man, they're chill. I've hung out with white people, man. They're cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Asians are pretty chill too.
Yeah.
Depends who you talk to, you know? Everybody's got those people who are chill.
It's because it has nothing or almost not anything to do with race as much as it does with the individual. If an individual is cool, you're going to find them cool, regardless of the color of their skin.
Everybody's got that bias in them, though. Deep down inside, everyone holds that bias. When they see a person, they create this image of
and
who
that's
they
why
may be.
the goal is to get rid of this bias.
You can't, though.
Over time.
You think so?
Have you seen Black Mirror?
I think it's a form of just evolutionary, like a sense of protection that everybody has. They see something they don't know. They try to figure out what the fuck this thing is, what it may do, and then they approach it. Like, that's just in our nature, you know?
We're living in a time where we're basically at the very emergence of globalization, living in a global world where you see vast areas in the world filled with diverse communities, right?
Yeah.
And you had never seen that before in the past. Historically speaking, Asians lived in Asia, you know. Native Americans lived in the Americas, and Europeans lived in Europe, Africans lived in Africa. But with this change in globalization in the 19th and 20th century, you now see this shift in populations, in demographics. Now
Yeah.
you see Africans in Europe, right? And now you see Asians in California. You see Americans all over the world. It's because of globalization.
Yeah.
And like Joe Rogan used the example of Black Mirror, where have you seen the show?
No.
Well, basically, there's this distinction between the thing is that Black Mirror is a UK show. It's created in the UK by people from the UK.
It's a show? Like
It's a show. You've never seen Black Mirror on Netflix, so it's just like episodes. Have you seen Twilight Zone?
yeah.
It's kind of like Twilight Zone. So basically, what they do differently in their cinematography than the United States does, for example, is that they don't necessarily assign racial groups with certain characters. Like, let's say, for example, the black person in cinema in the United States is typically like a gangster or someone, doing like, someone that's doing pretty bad, or a Hispanic's the same. It's usually like a gangster. You never see a Hispanic that's like a hero or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about Black Mirror is that since Europe is vastly different than, it treats race vastly different than the United States does, it's reflected in their cinematography as well. So black people take positions in shows like politicians or doctors, and that's pretty much how we should strive to be one day, like Europe, where we don't really necessarily pay attention to race as much as we do the individual. In a recent podcast did you see the Brazilian guy that was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, the Brazilian comedian?
Yeah, I saw something.
He said that it's very strange to him how when we count up demographics in polls when we vote, we separate whites from blacks, white votes and black votes, and to him, since they don't do that in Brazil, it was very strange. So it's like like I was saying, the United States focuses vastly on race instead of the individual, whereas other countries or different like areas of the world like Europe or Brazil, they don't do that.
We're not used to this fucking globalization that's existing, and I feel that it's kind of crept into the BH kind of late, since everyone else has already been exposed to this, and we're just being exposed to it. But yeah, just mentality has to change, perception has to change, because shit's just gonna keep changing. Shit moves forward. We gotta adapt, man.
So do you say that protests against gentrification are not justified, or?
I mean, right now I'm taking a democracy class, so I feel that any sort of
all right,
any
people do have the
of,
freedom to protest, of course.
Yeah,
but
I feel that any form of democracy is
I
good
guess,
for democracy, but for the area where I live, I don't see the point of.
Yeah, basically what I was trying to say is there an impending cause to protest against this?
If people feel there is, they will. I don't think there is, but that's my perception. Everyone else's perception is their own. They can do whatever they want. If they feel like going out to protest, that's their shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do, man. It's like the way we feel towards people who vote for Bernie Sanders. There's nothing we could do. Like it's their choice. They have the right to their choice. They have the right to their ideas. Fuck it,
Yeah.
There's no need for violence, though.
Oh, there's definitely no need for
vandalizing
violence.
Fucking the shop. Taking it to that extent just makes us look bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In fact, I was thinking about bringing that guy in here.
Who?
The shop owner.
Yeah.
I was thinking about going to his shop and asking if he wanted to be part of the podcast to just get his opinion on this whole situation.
You can see how he feels.
Because people are antagonizing this man, like they're looking at him as kind of like an oppressor. They're not really looking at him as a human being as much as they're looking at him as an oppressor, as this evil entity that's enacting oppressiveness among us, right? They don't necessarily attribute him human traits. So I want to bring him in here and kind of get his opinion on this whole thing, and just kind of like pick his brains on this whole shit.
Do you have the article? Like, does it have statements from protesters or anything?
They're saying get out. They include defend Boyle Heights Union.
They shattered the front window.
Yep. They also put blue paint on his business.
What does that represent?
No, just like they ruined his shop. Oh shit, my bad. They ruined his shop with like blue paint. They broke one of his door one of his doors, like the glass doors.
DEFA, Boyle Heights, and Union de Vecinos, which are part of a broader coalition called Boyle Heights Alliance Against Art Washing and Displacement, that has also protested numbers of galleries.
Art galleries. Yeah, they vandalize art galleries. Or they protested.
This group of people?
Man. I had a video I wanted to show you. Let me see. I think it's this one.
That's also something that's pretty prominent among the left.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna pause it right here so I could know more or less when to, edit this video into the clip. So now. People inside like, what the fuck? Because they're just regular people, man. They're so confused, they're like, what the fuck is going on?
Man, if the roles were reversed, if this was a minority business owner and white people from the area were doing shit like this, it'd be blowing up in the news, man. Like, have you heard of that one actress? The one actress who came out in this show or series called Roma?
Yeah.
Like, when somebody talks shit about her, it blows up. But all these
the
other
smallest
actresses,
offense against minorities will become viral.
all these fucking Caucasian actresses are being shitted upon by Mexican, like Univision and Gordo de la Flaca, but they don't blow it up on Fox or anything. Like, it's just, overall, it doesn't make sense. Like, racism, what defines racism then? Does racism...
When you discriminate someone based on their color.
Okay, but in the U.S., is racism just white people shitting on minorities, or does it also apply to...
Well, why wouldn't it apply to people fighting against whites? I mean, you're basically fighting against them because no one wants to hear the truth, man. I mean, people...
That's my main issue, that we act racist towards whites, but it's seen as okay, They've oppressed us. They deserve this fucking racism.
And you know what? In our society, in the United States, it's perfectly fine to shit on a white person, whereas it's not okay to shit on a minority group.
Oh no.
You can't shit on minority.
No,
you could say, oh, that's white people shit, or like, oh, that's so white of you,
Yeah,
like,
you'll just laugh it off,
Yeah,
but
like,
you say, oh, that's some black shit.
Oh,
what the fuck you mean that's black shit? Like,
yeah,
hey man, what the fuck, you just shitted on white people? Like, I thought we were just all cool like that.
I mean, it's not gonna work that way. But
that's in a perfect society,
Oh, you think
cool.
Yeah, it's cool to you think that's the perfect society where we could just all shit on each other based on our race, or?
Well, yeah, because that would just be us
joking around,
judging people on who they are. Race wouldn't be something that instilled in us, that calling somebody the N-word's gonna arouse like a violent reaction. Like in that hypothetical world, you could shit on a person's race and it'd be like just shitting on the color of their jacket. That's basically what I was trying to say. That racism and the whole concept of race and culture and who you're supposed to be is just instilled in you, and that's got to change, especially now, man. Because
I mean, we live in a unique time here in Boyle Heights.
It's crazy, man.
Because I mean, historically speaking, if
overall a unique time to be alive,
Yeah.
A lot of crazy shit going on.
But you know about Boyle Heights, the history, right? When it was first established in the 20th century. It was vastly diverse. What?
Pull up the guy, man. Pull up Boyle.
What's his name?
Just look up Boyle Heights, man. He comes out right there. Mr.
But
Boyle.
Historically speaking, this community was diverse.
Oh yeah.
And we live in a unique time in Boyle Heights history.
Like that TED talk where the guy said that.
Oh, you watched it?
The orange apartments were
for white people.
Was a gated community?
Yeah, for white people.
That's crazy, especially like Jewish people would live in these houses. Like,
oh yeah, that's why.
I'm pretty sure that shit was owned by my house. Was
there
owned
was
by
Asians
Jewish
here too, man. That's
Asians,
why
Russians. Russians as well. It's just crazy, man. And then it became all Mexicans. Well, predominantly Mexican Americans, Mexicans, and now we're just moving away from that again.
Exactly, and I mean, it's just a natural process. It's not a some kind of oppressive force that's doing this to us. It's just it happened historically. It'll continue to happen. The world changes all around you.
The shit is that we're able to accept this fact because we've gone to school. You know, we know that the reason we learn about history is to inform us about what could possibly happen in the future. This shock comes to the majority of people that live in Boyle Heights because many people are not aware of how diverse Boyle Heights was before, you know?
Yeah.
They just live in a now mentality, like, oh, right now there's been a lot of Mexicans here and they don't really know, like.
And a lot of people that live here have never got out of the community or have never experienced a culture shock like people that move out here and start dorming somewhere else where there's diversity.
That culture shock, though, I think it comes from living there, you know? Like, just visiting Irvine doesn't really give you that effect of, oh shit,
yeah,
there's other people here.
Oh, you have to live there, yeah. When you live amongst different cultures, that's when you really feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from living in a city where everyone around you is Hispanic and everyone in your high school except for one black person is Hispanic, and
shout out.
and then in just a matter of a couple days after graduation, I was living with an Asian and gay Greek American, so it was like it's just the biggest culture shock, you know.
That's crazy, man.
I had never experienced, and you know, it wasn't necessarily. I didn't have a bad experience with them because of like their culture. I just had a problem with being able to identify with others there, you know?
Yeah.
That was my main problem in my first year of college. I couldn't really identify with other people because I had came from this background of only living with Hispanics, you know?
Do you feel that if you had the mentality you have now, back in your freshman year, shit would have been completely different?
Well, to be honest, because I feel like I have more of an introvert persona. I don't know. It's hard to say, but maybe. I mean, with the shit I know now and like how people are different all over, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe, but what do you think, man? Because you also lived in Irvine.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That I'm more introverted, but I feel that little motivation you get to like, I'll say what's up to this person, I feel it would have been higher.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Back then.
Now I say what's up to like all the people that I used to know, you know? I'll be like, hey, what's up, man? You know?
Yeah.
I say what's up to my roommate, Jeff. Man, that guy's, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that little shit just leads to like furthering the relationship, you know? It becomes like, oh, what's up? Or how was your weekend? Shit like that. It just grows and grows and grows, and then you become friends with this person, you know?
Exactly.
So maybe, yeah, but yeah, I feel, yeah, overall, yeah, it would have, me having this mentality back during my freshman year would have made things different for me, yeah. We were looking for this guy's name.
What's his name?
The innovator, the founding father.
I'm just gonna control F Boyle.
The founding father.
The founding father.
History.
Andrew Boyle.
Andrew Boyle.
And he was what? He was Irish?
An Irishman.
Irishman. I mean, what the fuck?
He bought this whole area.
What the oh shit, I think it died.
Oh shit.
Hold on. Just stay on the mic. I'm just gonna connect this thing to the charges.
Andrew Boyle. I'm gonna read the description right here. Boyle Heights was called Pardeón Blanco, White Bluff, when Alta California was part of the first Mexican Republic. The area is named after Andrew Boyle, an Irishman who purchased 22 acres on the bluffs overlooking the Los Angeles River after fighting in the Mexican-American War. Oh, this man fought in the Mexican-American War.
You know what, man? This shit's not gonna work because I have to take it out of its little case.
But
man, I guess you're gonna have to sign out today. So, people can't see me, but I guess we're gonna call this a day.
Technical problems.
Technical problems. We'll continue this podcast maybe tomorrow or some shit. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Hopefully we can do this shit tomorrow again.
Yeah.
Let's call it a wrap, I guess, for today. All right, man.
For sure.
Let's do this shit. Yeah, I'll just edit it out afterwards.